Do you crave better self-esteem and confidence, but struggle to silence your anxiety, fears, and insecurities? If so, welcome to the sisterhood of fellow travelers on the path to reclaiming their self-confidence and happiness. I'm Jennifer DeBellis, award-winning author, speaker, and assault survivor. I spent the past few decades helping young women like you overcome fear, self-doubt, and trauma to reclaim their joy and self-worth. I cannot wait to share the secrets I learned on my own healing journey and help you restore your inner warrior as I show you the skills and tools you need to save your own broken world. If you're ready to empower your inner warrior to overcome fear, doubt, and anxiety, turn off those distractions and tune in to this episode. So in the previous two episodes on purpose, we talked about discovering our purpose and goals and building a life around fulfilling them. I shared ways to confront fear and doubt and how not to allow them to be a distraction. Today, I'd like to take us a little bit deeper into this distraction concept and dissect some of the actions that don't align with our purpose plans and goals. Once we take the time and care to actually plan out how we will pursue a life of purpose and passion, we need to safeguard ourselves from distractions and destruction. In today's episode, you'll get insights into what happens to our purpose and goals when distractions and destruction dominate our lives. You'll hear about some of my experiences coaching others toward a focused future. And you'll gain some strategies for identifying and disarming the things getting in your way and keeping you fulfilling your purpose and goals. So what does it mean to live with purpose? And how do we know we're doing it or doing it right? In previous episodes on this topic, we did kind of explore the meaning of purpose and the concept itself. And it doesn't really matter if you're thinking about like a lifetime purpose, like what was I called to do in my life, or if you think about it in a much smaller way, because we have so many areas in our lives, whether it's professional life, creative life, personal life, relational life, that we have a purpose. And these purposes can be interrelated or completely different. Like you might have a completely different work purpose, for instance, and that purpose is entirely different than maybe some of the other purposes that you're fulfilling in your household or in your community or some of the outlets that you do for leisure or, to whatever. And so when I talk to coaching clients about purpose, and try to help them identify whether it's a smaller purpose or a couple of interrelated purposes or the much larger picture or both. There's a few questions that we kind of look at and I ask them to consider. And the first one is, what is our reason for doing what we're doing right now? And you have to really soul search there and maybe sometimes even go outside of yourself and do a little bit of homework and, ask those people around you that are maybe informing those purpose plans or defining what that purpose is going to be. And you have to get at some of those answers. Another thing is, why do we exist in this moment? So that's a little bit different than the first question, because now you're looking for this reasoning that backs up, what it is. And then you go even deeper and you start to get into all those reasons. And that starts to kind of reveal some of the important meanings that you need in order to then set the right purpose plans and obviously make sure that your goals align with these reasonings. What future moments are we preparing for? So you also have to be looking ahead into the future toward those goals, or maybe toward milestone moments along your path toward your ultimate goals. You have to be able to start breaking those things down and be thinking about, what am I preparing for? How should I best be preparing for it? These are some of the things that I, again, review with my coaching clients so that we start to, before we can build a plan, we have to have all of this brainstorming out of the way to be able to figure out what are the details that have to go into this very specific, very unique plans that are going to help them live their life with purpose, tap into their passion so that they're enjoying the journey and so that they're radiating and
and it's contagious, which is always a benefit to when we're operating in our purpose. And people are just like, I don't know why, but you just have a good energy about you. And you can really feel that energy when you're around somebody who's just thriving in their purpose and their passion is just flowing from that. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like life hack number one, it really makes the hard work easier when that passion is flowing through, because there is, again, an energy that it's not that you can't explain the energy, it's that you can't bottle it up and sell it, though you wish you could, but you do carry it within you, and it's something that you draw upon when you are really operating in your purpose. And that helps that, again, the journey kind of go a little bit easier, or feel like it's a little less, burdensome, or, like taking forever. I know a lot of us want that instant gratification. We don't want to think about what's on the future horizon. We kind of want to think about like, how do we get it now? And a lot of things in life just don't happen that way. And maybe there are little things that we get now, and then we have to think about like, what else are we putting in place? Again, because we have bigger plans. There's a larger picture at play here. And then the last question that I usually pose, or the set of questions, this kind of sets up the last set of questions, is what goals do we have set that our purpose is leading us toward? So then we kind of have to think about those goals and see them as these things, as these strategies, or as these commitments that we have made in order to help us fulfill that purpose. And it's a really important step that we just can't skip, or we can't rush through, because it's the thing that's going to really help us get where we need to go. So recently I was talking with someone and I was coaching them through something, and it was very interesting because here I was meditating on this exact podcast episode, and then I come in contact with someone and I'm coaching them through something. And in this particular situation, they're raising a teenager who is an extreme athlete and a very talented athlete. And she finds herself kind of at a crossroad, and, without divulging some of the more confidential personal things that were happening in the call, I found myself going through some of these questions, and then I found myself kind of posing some questions back to the mom that really she couldn't answer, but that she could clearly start some really important conversations with her daughter, who is kind of like at a crossroads here where maybe she's not making some good decisions. She's not taking into account some of the consequences, but also that some of these things might not be aligning with her purpose, and therefore they're going to lead her down a completely different path. And that path can ultimately be a path of destruction, although some of these things are a lot of just little things that are just distractions. Again, not aligning. Talk about aligning. The things have to align with your purpose plans and with those end goals. And so in this particular case, this individual is an incredibly talented and gifted gymnast. And if you can just like imagine, like, let's say you are sitting with someone and they're reading the lifelines on your hand, and they get to a point where they say, okay, you have a split lifeline. And you say, what the heck is a split lifeline? Well, it could go either way. So your life is at a crossroad, and it's going to go in two different directions. And these directions are radically different. You literally have this choice to make at this crossroad. How serious are you about your athleticism and your commitment to take this athleticism as far as it'll go, to maximize it? And if right now you're looking at your life and saying, I have achieved all of my purpose and goals of being this very disciplined and, award-winning gymnast, and I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to hang up my wristbands, right? I'm ready to hang up my wristbands, and it was a good run. Or you have to make that decision. Are you going to take it to the college level and possibly the Olympics? And, looking at this individual's lifeline, those are very possible things. They're very possible. And it really all comes down to how serious she is about setting up this purpose plan and setting up all of these things that align with her achieving those end goals. And again, there's different stages. And even when she gets to those different stages, she might be faced again with different crossroads. And then she has to make these same decisions over and over and over again. What route am I going to take? But she's here at this particular place. And as her mom and I are talking, we're just, we're kind of exchanging like how frustrating and how hard it is to raise teenagers and to kind of help them at this stage in their life where they're kind of transitioning into young adult life. And the decisions are hard. And I can remember being an athlete. And so as I was talking to this mom, I was kind of going back to my own athletic days where I was just talented in a lot of ways, like running, for instance. I was the fastest girl in the state in the 400. That was, those were my glory days. And my coaches were very excited about that. And, my athletic training was kind of all year playing other sports. And I was a very active kid. So I walked everywhere, or rode my bike, and there was constant outside playing and running around. And then of course you get into high school and all of your friends drive. And so walking or riding your bike everywhere is no longer a thing. And so you're losing that thing. And then I stopped doing 3 sports a year. And then that training started to back down, and it wasn't enough for me to just have talent. And that was abundantly clear when the track season started. And we started training, and I realized I had lost some of my speed and I was going to have to do some stuff to get back in the game again. And I made some different decisions that didn't lead me down that road. And it was, looking back, do I have some regrets? It's hard to say. Yes, of course, I had dreams and visions of doing that, but I can't imagine my life going in certain directions, now seeing where my life went in hindsight. But I still always think what would have happened, because I had spent my entire childhood thinking about what I was going to do when I was finally in high school and maybe going into college, and what would that look like if I could be competitive. And I had scouts watching me since I was in the 7th grade. So imagine getting into the end of your high school career and you're kind of throwing it away, because the talent can only carry you so far, and you've really got to be disciplined. And I started to kind of get in, but I was all in. And I didn't have all these strategies either. So I didn't have somebody kind of saying, look, Jennifer, you need to do these particular things. You need to get your crap together. You need to get your thinking together. You need to get your actions to align with it. You need to have a plan. You need to go along with what the coaches are telling you. They really do have your best interests in mind, and all of those other things that go into it. And so now I'm talking to this mom, and I'm completely relating to some of the things that she's telling me. And I start telling her about some of these questions that I just shared with you. These are the types of things that you really need to ask her. She really needs to soul search. And you two have to, hammer some of these things out, because you also know her, and you also know the dreams that she's expressed to you. And so the two of you can kind of collaborate and brainstorm and kind of come up with a plan. And then you also have to have a really hard heart-to-heart talk with her, not mother to daughter, although these things happen with mother to daughter. You're going to have one of those conversations that's like girlfriend to girlfriend, heart to heart, in a different way. And some of it's going to be tough love. You're going to have to ask her some tough love questions. As I started kind of getting into this whole purpose thing, and I started saying, what you're telling me doesn't align with what she wants to accomplish. These things are actually distractions, some of the things that she wanted to fill her time with, and then some of the things that she's consuming. I'm like, these are not things that are leading her toward those goals, and they're destructive, and they catch up with you. And I just tried to create this very simple analogy for her, and she was like, wait, let me write some of this down as I was talking. And I just said, imagine that purpose is like a character sitting right next to you, like another person in the room sitting next to you. Or imagine that purpose is actually a voice inside of your head. And purpose is saying to you, what are you doing? If purpose ever says to you, what are you doing, in that tone? Not okay, what are we doing? Or what are you doing? Not like that, but girl, what are you doing? If purpose ever has to say that to you in a moment, you're not on track. You know that you are letting something that is not aligning with your purpose goals and your purpose plans to come in. And it's going to distract you, or if you let it, it's going to completely destroy you. If we let enough distractions get in our way, they will collectively destroy us. And we don't want to allow that to happen, at least not while we're watching, not while we're paying attention. We have enough distractions and forces of destruction coming at us all the time. And I don't care if you're a spiritual person or not, and you believe like who we are actually battling. We're dealing with people on a regular basis, for instance, and some of those people give us bad advice. They drag us in the wrong direction sometimes. Oh, you're no fun anymore. You used to be fun, and come out and we're going to do this. And, like I just think about sometimes when I'm, trying to get my health back in order and eat a particular way and eat within a particular time frame. And I have, certain individuals that I love spending time with, but sometimes if I allow them, they'll get me completely out of my routines, which are set in place for my success. I have certain routines in place for my success. And if I'm going to go outside of that routine, I prepare. So I have a plan, and then I have a backup plan or an alternate plan when that plan is not going to go according to how it is set up. So, I'm talking to this mom and I'm saying, imagine that you have all these things in place and now you have people or situations that are coming into your path and they're distractions and they're taking you away from or taking your focus away from what it's supposed to be on for you to fulfill that purpose and those goals down the road. So I was saying you need to really kind of carry that voice inside of you. Once you have a plan and you know what your purpose is, and you know all these different steps that you have to do or behaviors that you have to inhabit, behaviors that you're going to abstain from, you have to stay focused. You have to stay on track. And not maybe everything in your life has to be so rigid, but there are instances where you will have a call on you or you will have a reason for existing in this moment. It doesn't mean that someone else said this is why you exist. Maybe it's you've made the decision that I exist to do this exact thing right now. And then you have to commit to yourself to do those things, to fulfill that purpose, and you have to put up those safeguards to protect your purpose. Not just protect yourself, but you have to protect your purpose. No one is going to protect your purpose like you do. And you can also hope and ask those around you who are in your inner circle to respect those boundaries and to help you. You might need an accountability partner or two, and that's okay. That might be something that you need to come up with in your planning to say, I have these accountability partners. This person's role is this, or I know I can count on this person to do that. And you figure those things out. Maybe those things will change as you progress, or maybe people just kind of like, they fall away or sometimes they flake out and you have to replace them with someone else who's going to fulfill that role if it's something that you're really counting on. You need to put other things in place also to keep you on track. And you need to just keep things that are a known or familiar distraction or complete destroyer out of your life. Like, don't even bring it into your house. Don't even bring it into your car. Don't even bring it into your life. Just don't do it. Like a friend of mine used to say, and I love stealing it from her, she would say, abstinence is my only recourse. I just don't bring the stuff into the house, and therefore I don't have a problem with it. It's not within reach. And so that same concept is what I'm talking about here, is don't put things in reach that you already know are going to be impossible for you to resist, and therefore they're going to be a constant distraction, or maybe even that thing that completely destroys your efforts. You have to have all of those plans in order, and then you just have to keep things going according to the plan. You have to put the clear boundaries up, even if those boundaries are for yourself. And you have to keep asking yourself when something starts to get you off track, what are you doing? Is this really getting us toward that end goal? Is this really helping us fulfill the purpose? Is this a digression that has a positive reasoning or a positive outcome? Again, not everything may be connected to that, but there may be times when you're trying to fulfill a purpose that you actually have to forego certain things in your life. And it might just be a temporary thing that you're bringing out of your life because it doesn't align with the plans that you have to fulfill your purpose. And you have to be grown up enough to admit that and then to honor it because you deserve it. Or you need to say the honest truth to yourself, which is this isn't the purpose plan. This isn't my purpose. I may have to figure some things out. I may have to adjust. I may have to find a different purpose or call it something a little bit different. That could all go into the planning process also. And you have to be willing to call people out also. It doesn't mean that we have to disown everybody in our life. This isn't like a cancel culture thing, like you're either with me or you're not with me. Sometimes we might need to remove people out of our life or out of a particular situation temporarily or maybe permanently. But again, don't make those decisions in haste. Just really think about, do I need to remove the person out of my life entirely? Do I need to distance myself from the person now? Or do I need to limit interactions with them right now? Or do I just need to call them out? Do I just need to sometimes remind them, this is a boundary. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to agree with it, but this is a boundary. This is a choice that I've made because it's aligning with my purpose plans and those end goals. And you don't have to expect everybody to completely relate to what you're trying to do, to completely understand. And you don't have to find yourself lost in that vicious cycle of having to defend every single thing that you're trying to do, every single thing that you're trying to plan, every single thing you're trying to turn down. You don't have to find yourself doing that. You can give yourself permission to say, I'm not arguing this. I'm not going to always be defensive about the things that are super important to me or what I'm trying to do. And trust me, you're going to get to a point in life where you're not even going to be drawn to the people who don't get you. Even if they're not doing exactly all the same things that you're doing. You have your interested friends and maybe they're on the journey with you and they're serving a very similar or the same identical purpose. Or maybe we're talking about individuals who have no clue and they'll never have a clue what you're trying to do. And that's okay because our lives are filled with people from that extreme all the way to the other extreme and everything in between. And you can try with excitement to get people also excited with you about your purpose and your plans and your end goals and your dreams and all those things that you're trying to do. And you'll just get to a point if you are surrounded by people who aren't excited for you, who aren't cheering and rooting for you to fully inhabit your purpose and achieve those goals and maybe even be an asset to you in certain parts of your journey. They're not your people, maybe. You might get to that point. I know as I'm getting older, my circle's shrinking and, people ebb and flow out of my life, and that's okay. Even if you have to go through some kind of grief stages sometimes when people flow out of our life or out of our situations, give yourself the grace to do that also, but don't let that be a distraction or something that just completely makes you give up on your purpose and give up on your desires and those end goals. So as you're entering into this third week, after you've heard the 2 episodes before it about identifying what your purpose is and not allowing your fear and doubts and the anxiety that kind of triggers, let that derail you or defeat you or distract you. You're going to come to this point, I hope, that you start to identify what might be some things that may be distractions for you right now, so that the next time we come together, you've got a good handle on the whole picture. And it doesn't mean that you're out there running your race, for lack of a better analogy, although you could be running your race or you could be training for the big race. But it means that I hope that by the time we come back together, you'll have gone through some of this brainstorming and really identify what it is that you're after and what it is that's getting in the way. So if it's fear, if it's doubt, if it's the anxiety, if it's past trauma, if it is, again, these distractions that come in the form of maybe situations or individuals or just things that we're allowing into our lives or bringing into our lives that are destructive or that are counterintuitive or counterproductive to what we say that we're after. And you have to be willing to take those things out. And at the very least, you have to be willing to admit these things to yourself. Even if you're not going to say it out loud to anybody else, you might be the type of person who's like, I'm not going to show my cards. I'm not going to show my weakness. That's fine. I always find that I need to entrust these types of things to a very small group of individuals because it feels so good to have somebody just say, I see you. I hear you. I see your struggle. I feel for you and the complexity of you having to work all this out. Or also being excited about the things that you are trying to do and knowing what you're capable of doing. Because again, that small circle of individuals that you have that are close to you, they're also going to be a good voice of reason and be your best supporters and best cheerleaders on the sideline for these things that you're setting out to do. So I find that sometimes I might not be ready yet to share something like that with someone, but that eventually I appreciate doing it because of all the benefits that come from it. Even if it might too be somebody saying, what are you doing? What do you mean that's what your plan is? What do you mean that really that's what your purpose is? And those are sometimes the conversations that you have to have. And that doesn't mean that you end that conversation or walk away from that thinking, oh my gosh, I actually don't know my purpose. But maybe it's a real good challenging moment to get your thinking even more aligned with what it is that you're trying to do. So don't dismiss the power of finally opening up to someone, even if you're still in that vulnerable stage or that stage where you're just not 100% sure. And of course, if you are taking traditional routes, working with a therapist or a counselor or a mentor, of course, easy, right? You can bring these things to them and bounce these ideas off of them and have them help you with additional skills and strategies and this voice who's also familiar with you and with the things that you're trying to do, kind of like help you get on track and figure these things out and come up with that plan. So in the coming weeks, I'll be opening up my coaching sessions again. So stay tuned for details on how you can work with me on confronting fears, doubts, and distractions while you establish your purpose and goals. And until I see you again, keep really working through this, getting down there in the trenches and figuring it all out. And when you're having a hard day or a hard moment or just really trying to struggle through some little minute detail, or maybe it's a huge detail, just remember, I believe in you. And I know that you believe in you too. And that's why you're doing the hard and necessary work to establish all of these things and to get that game plan. And I'm really excited to see where you take things. Well, girl, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, don't forget to follow my channel and share it with girlfriends who also want to restore their self-worth and confidence. If you haven't already, consider joining my Facebook group of women just like you, the Restore Your Inner Warrior Sisterhood. Here's a safe space to get tips, share stories, and find community support. And if this podcast inspired you, consider leaving a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. As you go through your day, may your empowered spirit, heart, and mind guide you. Catch new episodes every Saturday. Ciao.